Now that we know what are constructors in Java and what is the syntax of creating a new constructor method, and how do we differentiate it from a normal ordinary method in Java, now let's have a look at a real world scenario, a practical scenario where constructors come handy. So we're talking about an example here. Let's say there is a car manufacturing company and they come to us, that is the development team, to create an API for them. That is, but they have one requirement in particular, and that is they want us to store the car details like the chassis number and the name of that car at the time a new car object is created. That is, in their terms, at the time when a new car comes out of the manufacturing plant, right? So they don't want us to store the details later on, but at that particular time, right? So how would we go about that, guys? And how would we put in constructors as a classic case of implementation here for this particular example? Let's have a look at that. So for now, what I'll do is I'll just create a new class. Hit next, and I'll just name this car, right? Hit finish. I don't need the main method here. And in my car class, I'll have a couple of properties. Let's say private string name, and I'll say private long chassis number in camel case, right? And then I'll have a constructor using fields here, right? And that is, I'll say car. And by the way, you have a shortcut in Eclipse to do that. You go to right click and go to source and then say generate constructor using fields, right? And you select both of these for name and chassis number and hit generate. And Eclipse comes up with the implementation of the constructor, this time using fields, guys. Now, as we can have parameters in normal methods, we can have parameters in constructors as well, but not just for the sake of having them. Here we have a practical requirement, that is, we want to assign this particular name that would be passed to the constructor to the instance variable that is name, and that is the same with chassis number, right? We want to map them because you know the local variables here, they would be dead when this line number 11 is reached, but these variables, that is instance variables of an object, they live as long as the object is alive, right? So we want to map the values of the local variables to the values of the instance variables, that is name and chassis number, and that's how we have done it. And because I've used Eclipse shortcut to generate the constructor using fields for me, so it knows I would generally need to do the mapping, right? Okay, once you're done doing that, so I'll just save this and head over back to my constructor demo.java, and in this case here, now I'll just comment this, right? I'll delete this earlier code, and now when I say car, and I'll just call it the car, new car, I'm creating an object. Now you'll get an error, guys. Now you cannot create an object of this class car like the traditional way. Why? Because it will tell you that is the arguments and the parameters for this constructor do not match. Why? Because you go to car.java and you're seeing the car constructor takes in two parameters of type string and long, and you're not passing them. That's why an error, and you hover on this, Eclipse tells you the same. The constructor car is undefined because the car constructor I know about takes two arguments of type string and long. So now, and that was their requirement. They were very precise about this requirement. That is, they wanted us to store the car details, the name and the chassis number at the time the car object is created. They did not want to do it later on, guys. And now we have a restriction, right? That is, the restriction is now whenever the car object is created at that particular time, they would have to provide the chassis number and the name for this car object. They can't do it later on. So now I'll just do that. I'll say name, for example, I'll just put it to I10, and then the long chassis number, for example. And now you see this is working. Absolutely is. Now no one can do something like this. I'll just call it second car, create another object. See, it's not allowed. I'll say doesn't work now, right? I'll, for now, put it into comments, right? And you know why won't it work? Because they were very precise about this requirement, and we as a development team thought about this solution for this problem and came up with constructors as being the classic example of usability in this particular solution, in this particular scenario, guys. That is a practical demonstration of where and why you will use constructors. That is, you want to instantiate the instance variables of an object at the time the object is created, and that is the classic time, that is the right time to use a constructor. Why? Because you do not have to say something like this later on, the car dot set name and set chases number to something. No, you want to do it at the time a class car object is created, and that's why constructors come handy.